empathy. This fellow Bloom from Yale University, I'm not sure if you haven't interviewed him yet, you should, because he points out the overuse of empathy or inappropriate use of empathy, like letting a stranger into your door is a simple example, but having traits that make you overreact, say, to blood and guts, is going to prevent you from being a surgeon. You've got to be able to get your knife in there and slice people up, and to some extent ignore them if, up to a point, if they're complaining. Right. But, so there are jobs in which too much empathy is going to impede your ability to success. So he goes through a lot of examples like that. I suppose one of the first things they do at boot camp is to try to impose certain kinds of motivations in soldiers that are joining the army, and make sure they understand that if you don't kill first, they're going to kill you, or they're going to kill your buddies. And that should be the way you think when you're in a war. And if you don't have that ability to reframe your normal, gentle personality, then you're in the wrong place.
Right. Well, and it's clearly the case that people who are very high in trait empathy, so called Billion Wicked Thoughts. It's a very, very interesting book. It was written by Google engineers, and one of the things they did was analyze pornography use between men and women, and with billions of searches, literally. And they found, which is not surprising, that men preferred visual pornography, but females preferred literary pornography. And they found the classic literary pornography plot, which was something like, relatively innocent but undervalued and attractive but not so obviously attractive young woman stumbles across this sort of commanding man who has many women at his disposal, and over time, despite his relatively high levels of aggression, he finds himself attracted to this woman and then forms a sexual relationship with her. It's a Beauty and the Beast plot, essentially. But one of the things that's so interesting about their analysis was they listed the top 5 occupations or characters for female sexual literature. And they were pirate, surgeon, billionaire, vampire, and pilot. And so those are all males who I would say are marked by, not pilot, werewolf. Werewolf was the 5th one. And so I think it reflects to some degree this conundrum that women have. It's because women have to pick a man who has the capacity for aggression, enough of the capacity for aggression to protect himself and others and to move out into the world against a fair bit of opposition, but who's also simultaneously empathic or perhaps conscientious enough to be caring and share. And you can imagine that's a real knife edge, right? Because you need a bit of a monster in your man, let's say, to keep the real monsters away, but you don't want so much monster so that a relationship is impossible. And so then you could also imagine that there's overshoot on both sides of that target, so that some men become too aggressive, but can appear attractive in the short term because they have the confidence associated with that. And some men become too agreeable, and so they look easy to get along with and so forth, but they can't put themselves forward and stand up for themselves. And so be another explanation for the potential emergence of, say, sadism and psychopathy is that there's this narrow target for, especially for men to hit, doesn't account for female psychopathy, but for men to hit, and it's easy to overshoot in either direction. And there's going to be variability in women's choice as well.
The current administration's New Year's goals